welcome to today's video. A little bit different again. I wanted to talk about why I can't be an artist full-time and support myself. So I have a lot of questions asking if being an artist is my full-time job, and the fact of the matter is I couldn't afford to feed myself if I was a full-time artist. It's just I don't make enough money to, especially living in Australia. It's really difficult to live comfortably, really. So I sort of wanted to talk about just what the expenses are in my particular art practice and what difficulties I have in my practice and actually living in Australia. And so the first one I wanted to talk about was using my social media and YouTube videos and stuff. The main thing that is really difficult is when your majority of your audience is based in the US and you're living in Australia. I've found that a lot of social medias, including Instagram, Facebook, especially YouTube, don't really feed my stuff out to my audience. So I am sort of wondering whether it's because I'm in Australia that it's not feeding my audience out, feeding my content out to my audience, because I'm really only getting very little engagement from my actual followers, and it's always the same frame of engagement. So that tells me that only a fraction of my stuff is getting fed out to my followers, which is really frustrating, because I really hope that it's not because I am Australian, because it's kind of discriminating against that. So that's what I found is quite difficult when it comes to that. The other thing I want to talk about is the shipping costs. So like I said, my majority of my audience is from the US, and that means that shipping costs are quite high. So even sending things within Australia, it can be quite high. So if I'm sending something from Melbourne to Perth, it's almost the same price as sending something from Melbourne to the US. Sometimes it's cheaper, which is unbelievable to me. I don't know why. But I know we're not the most expensive shipping that I've come across before. I know the UK has quite expensive shipping from what I've seen. And well, I guess I'm kind of lucky in that sense, but it is still quite expensive to ship something, and not a lot of people are willing to spend that money. So if I have a print or something, to send a print overseas via registered post, it's $21, and that's quite expensive to send a print overseas. If someone wanted registered, if it wasn't registered, it's usually up to $10 to send, probably less, but it's not registered, so it ends up just, if it gets lost, it's lost. It's nowhere to be found, basically. So people aren't really willing to actually spend any money on that. Another thing is people don't have money to spend as well. So especially in Australia, we don't have a lot of play money. So even though my audience isn't really Australian audience, it's more US, I'm sure it's the same deal over in the States. I don't know, because I'm not American. I can only tell you by what's in Australia. We don't have a lot of spending money. So usually, you know, to live comfortably in Australia, you need to earn probably $70,000 to $80,000 a year to live comfortably, and that's, you know, just average expenses, you know, with bills and stuff. And if I were to quit my job and live off my art, I'd only be making a quarter of that, so I couldn't actually afford to feed myself, which is crazy. So it's just not a viable career for me anyway, especially when my stuff doesn't get fed out to my audience, which is quite frustrating. And another thing is our taxes are pretty high as well, and you know, we get taxed for pretty much anything they can get their hands on, we get taxed as well. So yeah, another thing is that I want to talk about were materials. So I might sell a doll for $400, for example, and that's pretty much my average price for a doll at the moment. And for the materials to mold a doll head, you're looking at around $20 just for the silicone to mold the head. For the resin, a full bottle of what I get silicone is $280 for the bottle that I get, and I'll get maybe 5 to 6 molds out of it. So it's probably between $20 to $60 per mold. Granted, you can use the mold over and over again. It does have a lifespan of about 50 molds, 50 casts, and then it sort of disintegrates. The next thing is resin. Resin is $60 for the size that I get, and I'd probably get maybe 10 to $15 worth of parts cast out of that, and that will be the heads and the feet. So that's not too bad. It's cheaper than clay, but if I were to use clay, that's another thing. A packet of Sculpey here in Australia, Sculpey Original, is the cheapest one that I get. It's about $40 for a pack of it. For a 1.75 pound 794 gram pack, it's about $40, and that's the cheapest I've found in Australia. If you're using Super Sculpey, it's more expensive again, because it's more of an expensive clay. So that's only if I'm using Super Sculpey. If I'm using Monster Clay, the reason why I use Monster Clay is that I can reuse it over and over again. So to buy a thing of Monster Clay in Australia, it's about $40 again, but I've never had to replace it, so $40 it's pretty good for something that I've never had to replace, considering how many things I've sculpted out of it. And then you're looking at all of the attachments. So armature, to buy a wholesale armature thing, you have to spend $500 US to buy the set, buy the armatures, which will get you maybe like $100 worth of armatures. But if you don't spend that $500, you get a surcharge of $50 US. So it's not really worth getting less, and then you can pay the shipping on top of that. So they use a courier, and that is about $75 to $100 for the shipping. So that's coming up to $600. And then if I wanted to use wire armature, I usually get it here for about $12 for a roll like this. It's $12, and that will get maybe, again, $10 to $15 worth. And then we have glues. So we have glue, we have epoxy. This is probably $30 here in Australia. And then we have electricity, we have internet, we have gas, all the bills associated with that. We have paints as well. So it all adds up in the end, which is crazy. And then the cost of faux fur. So to buy a meter of faux fur, you're looking at about $70 to $80. And that's quite a lot, because I'll only ever get maybe 2 lucky $3 worth out of that, maybe 4. So we're up quite a lot of money to make a doll. So really, to make a doll, you're looking at $80 to $100 for me to make the doll. So I'm really only profiting $30. But then you've got fees on top of that. So you've got fees for your store, you've got PayPal fees, bank fees, taxes, all of that adds up. So really, I'm not making a lot of money out of it. So that's pretty much why I can't actually feed myself. Another thing, thread can be expensive. You go through a lot of thread. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Glass eyes, cabochons, and you know, there's many other little tiny accessories that you need to buy to make your doll, but whatever. So really, I probably couldn't even afford to do anything, really. It's just sort of a hobby for me that I pay tax on. So yeah, so if you're wondering why I'm not a full-time artist, that's why. I really don't make a whole lot of money off it. And also, you know, I've started moving on to, not moving on, but sort of adding other different mediums of art into my practice, which I've wanted to do. So I'm pretty into watercolors and stickers and prints and stuff, but because my audience is really based more on my dolls, the audience isn't really interested in purchasing prints. Whether they're seeing it or not, I don't know. So really, I'm sort of starting again, trying to build myself another following that's interested in prints and watercolors. So because I'm focusing on that as well and not 100% focusing on my art dolls now, obviously revenue and stuff has sort of gone down a little bit because I'm not engaging that audience that is following me. So it's really interesting because every year is sort of different, and you know, I try different things every year and sort of take note of what works and what doesn't work. I tried a couple of years ago, I went to a expo and in an artist alley and sold a couple of dolls, but yeah, it was really kind of a waste of time. I mean, it was nice meeting everyone and all that, but I'd probably never ever do that again. I'm not a people person either. I'm a pretty full-on introvert, so it's pretty mentally taxing for me, so I probably would never do that again. Especially in Australia, knowing that a lot of Australians don't really have the money to spend. So I'd probably, yeah, like I said, never do it again. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can actually answer. And you know, if you have any troubles or you're experiencing the same things, let me know, and yeah, then we can discuss down below. But in the meantime, I do have a Patreon if you want to support me on there. It will help me a lot. That's at Creatures of Nat, but it'll be in my description box. You can head to my website, creaturesofnat.com, and you can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat. So I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!